the sad reality of Madden 21, or maybe just Madden in general. But today I want to talk about kind of some of these problems we're having with the game and we've been having for a while, things that need to be fixed, and kind of just like what's going on with the game. Now, yesterday I came across a video by a guy named Joe Knows, who's an NBA 2K YouTuber, and he made a video titled The Sad Reality of 2K21. And I watched it and I thought to myself, I could literally make the same video about Madden 21 because I was kind of blown away at just how relatable that video was to how I feel about Madden, even though it's a completely different game. It is a sports game, and of course, EA and 2K are kind of always linked forever just because of the old football games, and they're the other big sports game in the market that isn't created by EA. And we always kind of look at 2K as like having at least a little bit of a better product than EA, even though they do have their own problems as well. But I felt like this was a good video to make about what's going on with Madden, and not just to bash the game and the people that make it, but just to talk about like some of the issues that we have a community have been dealing with for years, and things that are just still not seeming to move in the right direction. It feels like in certain areas we keep moving backwards. Now, the first thing I want to start off is with his gameplay, because that's really where you have to start off with every game, right? And, when he was talking about 2K's gameplay, a big, part of that video was about how it's just getting easier for everybody to compete, which obviously I understand from a developer standpoint, from a creator of the game standpoint. You want as many people to be able to compete as possible because that probably means more money for you, more people staying on the game longer. I get that aspect of it. I just think it's bad for games when you talk about the long haul, when you talk about competitive tournaments in the competitive scene, when you talk about people becoming disinterested in the game. And when you look at the past Maddens, Madden 21's a big one. Madden 20 was another big one where this shift was going even more so downhill. Nobody really can stand out in these games anymore. I was talking with a couple Madden buddies, and I said, that's one of the reasons the esports scene struggles to get a lot of interest, because you can't put on a competitive Madden game and really, if you're a casual, you can't tell what makes these players good. I could put on a Call of Duty competitive tournament, and I can instantly see why these guys are better than the average person and my friends. Like, it just jumps off the screen. When you turn on a Madden competitive game, if you don't know the little intricate things that they're doing, nothing stands out. Everybody looks the same, and that's because the metas of the game, the over effective tactics, are becoming more and more easy to implement every year, to where anybody can compete. You look at Madden 20, we had the worst run game ever. The stretch and the dive was super overpowered. The defense was almost the easiest it's ever been, where you could just blitz 7 people. You didn't have to think much. You didn't even have to adjust very much. There was very easy way to bring the quickest pressure possible. There was not a lot you could do to consistently block it or beat it. It was just very, I got to make the right guess. You got to make the right guess. And it was just anybody could do that. And then when you went to offense, there was not a consistent run defense all year that could stop somebody, even when you knew they just wanted to run the ball. And now that takes us to Madden 21. I want to give a big shout out to Blinkist for sponsoring today's video. It can be really tough to find the time to sit down and read. I'm always busy with different family and work related things, and I'm sure most of you can relate to that, and that's why I love Blinkist. Blinkist takes nonfiction books and condenses them all the way down to 15 minutes, covering the key ideas and takeaways that you need to know. Blinkist has the best insights from over 3,000 nonfiction books. You can read them or even listen to them podcast style while you're on the go. I just recently checked out the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey, and I've got a long list of other titles that I can't wait to dive into. The first 100 people to go to Blinkist.com/EricRayweather are going to get unlimited access for 1 week to try it out. You'll also get 25% off if you want the full membership, so definitely check that link out below in the description and in the pinned comment. So as far as Madden 21 is concerned, when you look at defense kind of took the same route on the current gen version of the game. It might even be easier than last year because man defense is just so good this year, especially when you consider some of the abilities like one step ahead, which is exactly what it sounds like. If you have one step ahead on your defensive back and he's in man coverage, he will literally be one step ahead of the wide receiver almost every time, and the route abilities for receivers just don't do a good enough job at countering this, and that was always supposed to be the thing with abilities, is that everything was supposed to have a counter. Well, this year, man defense on current gen doesn't have much of a counter. Sure, there are some routes that do very good against it, but when the average person can just kind of set it and forget it with man defense, sure, you might make a tweak here or there, throw a couple purple zones on the field, right? But when you can kind of just set it and forget it and know that the good majority of the time, the AI controlled players are just going to do the work for you, they're just going to stick to the wide receivers like glue, that's not very good for the game, because then if anybody can play defense, then nobody can play defense. That's how I look at it. You know, playing defense should be something that you have to know how to make the adjustments. Maybe you need to know more about X's and O's than the other guy. That would be ideal, right? Whether you think it's X's and O's or whether you think it's more about user skill and stick, whichever side you're on of that argument that you think makes a good player, right? Neither of those things are there in the game anymore. Stick skills are being taken away more and more every year, and X's and O's have never truly mattered that much in the game to begin with. You know, then you go to the next gen version of the game and it's kind of the exact opposite, right? Nothing on defense works on next gen. There's not a single defense that works good on next gen. Whereas on offense, everything works. You can close your eyes and pick a play. And if they're in zone defense, you're probably going to run by them. Everything's a one-play touchdown on next gen. If they're in man defense don't work at all on next gen. So either way, it's like they've tried to do things to fix that. They've tried to buff the zones. They've helped a little bit, not nearly enough. So it's two different versions of the game. Both are too easily accessible, right? The current gen version, it's super mindless to play defense. On the next gen version, it's super mindless to play offense. It seems like there's never a true balance with the game these past few years, and that's why it's making it very easy for everybody to compete. Every game's an easy game. I haven't played next gen Madden since the week it dropped because I don't like next gen, and I hopped on it the other day and I was still putting up a ridiculous amount of points, and I'm not even up to date with what the most popular things in the game are. I just know it's that easy on offense, and that's not good if I can do that. I should have got on there and struggled for a little bit and said, hold on, I gotta go practice, I gotta adjust, I gotta see what are the tactics that people are using. Now, I shouldn't have been able to just jump on there and anything I called on offense worked, but that's the state of the game. And then when you get outside of the gameplay, you would say, well, maybe some of the other aspects of the game are good, but they just haven't been, right? If you're in the franchise crowd, I mean, look, I don't have to tell you, y'all know how bad franchise mode has been, and yes, EA seems like they are trying to finally fix that, right? They've done a couple of franchise updates this year. They have a third one coming, I believe, maybe next month, and then they did say what they plan to do for 22. Those are good things, but this video is the reality of Madden right now, not what the future holds. It's the reality, and the reality is franchise mode is still very bad, specifically if you compare it to 2K, right? 2K's got a bunch of problems, but one thing they don't have is a bad franchise mode. They got tons of customization, and you can create everything in that league the way you want it, right? It's super deep. It's got all the little intricate things that, you know, the hardcore franchise guys want. So while I do think that EA will make it better, and they have been attempting to, and they're on that path, even though it's being kind of, you know, drawn out very slowly, I do think there is some hope there, which is good. But for the current state, the reality of the game right now is that's not good either. And then you go to career mode. Like, you know, they've been trying to get this face of the franchise thing popping, just hasn't been working. People are not responding to it. People don't want the super corny, you know, storylines, the very predetermined stories that kind of can only take you one or two directions. Again, another area where 2K nails it. Yes, 2K gets a lot of backlash for the way they have just injected so much microtransactions into their career mode, which does hold it back. But when you put at least that part to the side and you say, what is it like is just something with depth, something is creativity and customization, it has a lot of that. It's something where there's at least multiple different things that can happen in a story. There's a lot of different little things and that trigger like different little cutscenes and events and things that happen, right? When you compare that to what EA has with Madden, it is a night and day difference, right? So you don't have a good career mode, you don't have a good franchise mode. Gameplay is becoming more unbalanced every year, and it's becoming less skillful every year, and everybody is pretty much almost equally as good as at the game to a certain degree. You know, there's the top 1% of players that obviously are better than everybody else, but that other 99%, I mean, most of them might as well be the same player, and that's not good for the game. And, you know, then you look at something, you know, I want to say something good, and this might not surprise people, but when you look at Ultimate Team, yes, I would say that was one bright spot this year, the content in Ultimate Team. And for the past few years, there's been times and periods where the content's gone dry, but overall, content has been usually pretty good, especially this year. They've done some of the best content they've ever done in Ultimate Team, and that is a plus. But the thing is that's only one area of the game. And when you consider that gameplay is still very bad, even though the content in Ultimate Team is good, Ultimate Team as a whole is still not as much fun because the gameplay still matters, right? The gameplay, everything is riding on the gameplay. So if the gameplay is bad, even if your mode is filled with cool stuff like Ultimate Team, playing Ultimate Team still isn't always the most fun because you still have to deal with the gameplay. You look at things like the Yard. I do think the Yard was a good addition. I had fun playing it, but it got old quick, and that was to be expected because I know it was the first year, so they're only going to do so much with it in the first year, and that's fine. That is something I hope they build out next year. I don't want it to turn into another another superstar KO where it's like, hey, this is a fun, cool little experimental new thing for the first year, and then we don't want to update it next year. They need to update that the same way they need to keep building franchise back up and career mode back up and fixing the gameplay. All areas of the game need to be brought up. You know, the yard should eventually turn into what the park is for 2K. The park is innovative, whether you like it or not. It's a fun aspect of the game that many people enjoy. The yard in its first year, I think, is fine, but that's what the bar is for the yard, is to turn into the park. The bar for franchise mode right now is either 2K5's franchise mode, or you at least look at NBA 2K's current franchise mode and say, well, we should at least have that. Same with career mode, right? Gameplay is always kind of like the wild card, because a lot of games nowadays, people usually aren't happy with the gameplay. I don't think there's a single game out there that I haven't heard a bunch of people complain about the gameplay. So that one is just like one of those hard things to master. I mean, features and depth shouldn't be nearly as hard, because it's more so about just having it there. Gameplay, you have to cater to a bunch of different opinions and styles of people, which can be tough. But I think the one thing most people would agree on is more realism, more balance, and less you know, easiness, if you will, right? We want good players to stand out. We don't want every player to look exactly the same, and that's what it looks like when you watch a Madden game. You can't tell if you're somewhat of a casual viewer that's checking something out for the first time. You can't tell what makes the best Madden player better than the 100th best Madden player. They look like the same player if you're just putting it on for the first time, whereas other games, you can kind of instantly see why some of these guys are better and who is better, and that's an area that Madden has been lacking in a big way. So that's really all for today. Just kind of wanted to put like a real talk video out there. Let me know what you think below in the comments. As always, I will see you guys next time.